Hi, welcome to the Age Management Show. We are your hosts.
I'm Dr. Ali.
And I'm Dr. Sam. So today we are going to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is your diet. If you remember last week, we talked about the 5 tips on how to prevent a downward medical spiral. And those were, first of all, your diet or nutrition, and then there was exercise, there was weight management, there was your stress management and your sleep, and then hormone replacement. So those were the 5 tips.
Yep.
Today we're going to take the first one, and we will in subsequent sessions talk about each of those tips in more detail. And today's topic is your diet and how it should be a source of nutrition, and how if you are eating properly, it should help to prevent many illnesses from happening.
Great.
So we're going to start off with a story. We're going to start off with a story about a physician, actually, because we often don't talk about doctors.
Not a story, a case.
It's an actual story. Yeah, an actual case. And that is somebody named Dr. H. Dr. H is a 54-year-old male surgeon who is very fit, regularly goes to the gym. He does a lot of health-related activities like running and taking care of his health. He is very disciplined, but also very busy. He's very disciplined about everything, like going to the gym and exercising, keeping his weight under control and whatnot. But he's not very disciplined about his eating. So he was eating basically things like tea and cookies and coffee and a muffin, because that's what he would get between his cases. And he felt wonderful. He felt great because I guess he was running on caffeine and sugar. And then he might have like a decent meal at the end of the day. His dinner would be decent. So one fine day, Dr. H had a severe heart attack, chest pain, grabbing his chest, the whole thing, was rushed by ambulance to the hospital, and he ended up having 2 stents. Now, when everyone heard this, they were in shock. They were like, what? How could this person who was so fit and so healthy have anything like a heart attack? Not even close.
No people like this.
Mm-hmm.
Who were fit, they look great, they exercise all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're very careful about everything, but
something happens, right? So he ends up having a heart attack and getting 2 stents, and he didn't even have high cholesterol. He had no diabetes, he didn't smoke, he had nothing. The only thing, and he attributes his problem to this, and that is that he had a family history. His father had heart disease, and he said that caused my heart problem. And we said, but you shouldn't have had it because you were looking after yourself so well. But he insisted that was the only thing that triggered it. So it didn't.
But family
really
history
make
is not a
sense.
magical thing that, if my mom has it, then I have it.
Mm-hmm.
It causes something, or something happens to you that's an interaction of environment and physical.
Mm-hmm.
And then that leads to you having a similar condition or similar problem.
Right.
So family history by itself, just having a history, but if you don't live according to some risk factors, it's still unlikely that you're going to get it.
Yeah, you could have the genes for something.
Right.
And if you really work hard at keeping yourself well and fit and, get proper nutrition, you may never have that gene expressed, right? So,
exactly.
So that brings us to a little discussion about what is your food doing for you. There are macro and micronutrients in food.
Well, the question becomes, so then what should I eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the government's always here to help us. So they set up the RDA. And the RDA, by standard definition, is
recommended daily allowance.
By our definition, it's ridiculous daily amounts.
Mm-hmm. And that is because on every package you'll see that there's an RDA listed, and it has all the amounts of certain nutrients that you're supposed to be getting in every day and how much that particular food provides you on a percentage basis. And those numbers, I think, were established a long time ago to prevent things like scurvy and rickets and a lot of stuff that we don't see anymore that used to happen
right
back
scurvy
in the day.
is vitamin C deficiency that used to happen to sailors that used to sail without vitamin C for many months at sea.
Mm-hmm. Rickets is a deficiency of vitamin D, but a severe deficiency. And so these numbers, the RDA was that you need this amount of this nutrient to prevent those illnesses. But those were not optimal. They're not optimal amounts, right?
They're not optimal amounts. And these amounts are daily amounts. So you need to consume them daily. You can't just take in your week's worth of vitamin C or week's worth of vitamin D. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a balanced nutrition every day so that you're extracting those nutrients. Because that leads us to how the body extracts nutrients and how that works.
So tell us about that.
So the way that works is our food is our main source of nutrition. So that means that everything that we need is extracted from our food. So we swallow something. It can be a fancy meal, $1,000 meal, or $1.99, right? And it doesn't matter what it is, how it looks, what it is. It all goes in the same way. You swallow it, and it goes into your stomach, which is an acid bath. It's a bath filled with strong hydrochloric acid, and it just rips everything apart.
It dissolves everything.
It dissolves everything into its components, right? And then those components are absorbed into the bloodstream, and then they circulate, and the body uses them to build muscle, bones, tissues, nerves, give you energy, do everything. And there's two types of nutrients. There's two main groups of nutrients that exist that come out of this. First is the macronutrients, which are the large quantity nutrients, which is fats, proteins, which is made up of amino acids, and carbohydrates, which is made up of sugar. And then you have the micronutrients. Micronutrients are vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. And these are in smaller amounts, but they're still all essential. And we learned this in basic biology in high school about how you need different vitamins and minerals and all this kind of thing. And you need them
every
regularly.
day, right? You need them all the time because every day your body is using these up. Your organs, your muscles, everything is using up all these.
And people tend to forget. People tend to forget that we need to keep taking these in for the body to work optimally.
So in the case of Dr. H, I mean, he's running around all day and he's eating cookies and muffins and tea and coffee. There's not much nutrition he's getting there, but that tells us that your cells, basically on a cellular level, you're starving. Even though he was full, he didn't feel hungry. He was running on caffeine and sugar and maybe some carbohydrates, maybe some fat. But on a cellular level, on a microscopic level, his cells were deficient of nutrition.
Right, because he was fit, he was building muscle, so that means he had protein. He had energy, so that was the carbohydrates turning into sugar and giving him energy, and the caffeine. And he had the fat, so the body wasn't looking gaunt and skinny and worn out. So he had all the macronutrients, but the micronutrients were obviously missing, and this was causing some of the damage. And so you can hypothesize that many diseases occur because of micronutrient or vitamin deficiency, right? And they're not the obvious ones like scurvy and rickets, but other things that we don't even think about as being affiliated or associated with vitamin or micronutrient deficiency.
And it happens on a long-term basis, right? So it's not short-term. It's not like, okay, today I only had tea and coffees and muffins, so I'm going to feel sick the next day. It's not necessarily like that.
Right, because you'll have a bunch of, there's a lot of smart-ass doctors on...
Did you just say that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of smart-ass doctors online that will talk about expensive urine. Vitamins is just expensive urine. You're just going to pee them out. They're a waste of time, a waste of money. You don't need them. But it's not true, right? We learned this in basic biology in high school that at the cellular level, all these functions, all the chemical reactions require minerals, require coenzymes, require vitamins. So this is what everything is needed. And if you're not getting it from your food, because our food nowadays is hollow, it's empty, right? And we're going to talk about that a lot in this session.
And also people who exercise a lot actually need more nutrients, right? Because they're breaking down muscle and bone and other things and rebuilding. So they use up more nutrients.
Right. And with age, we've talked about how with age, the hormone levels go down and the efficiency of the body goes down. So actually your digestion and absorption also goes down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have indigestion and stuff as you age.
Mm-hmm.
In your 20s, you'll eat pizza and go to sleep and nothing bothers you. At 50, you're like, oh no, I can't eat pizza at night. I can't eat this. And, because, I get these little problems and I get reflux and these are all these diseases of middle age and advancing years because your body's working less efficiently. Right.
And we eat less as we get older, right? Because we're trying to maintain our weight. So we try to eat lesser amounts. So then we're getting even less nutrition.
Just less in and less out. You're taking less in and you're getting less out of it because there's less there for you to extract from.
Less out. You mean like less absorption?
Less absorption.
You were talking about something else.
No. So
you're wearing a red sweater. You can say anything you want today. But tell us about the next story, which is even more interesting.
Right. Well, the next story actually was just global headlines because there's a fellow named Jim Fixx, Fixx, and you can look it up. It's all over the net and all the stories. And New York Times had a story on his life and all this. And he was basically just a normal guy who had put on a lot of weight, and he was just humongous. He was like about 200 or something, 280, 300 pounds. And he was having chest pain. And he, went to the cardiologist and they said, well, you need a cardiac bypass surgery. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, okay, well, if I need to do it, then go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, sorry, you're too fat. And they said,
so they wouldn't do it?
So they wouldn't do his surgery. Mm-hmm. So he's like, but I'm having chest pain. I could die. And they said, well, you're too fat. You'll die anyway. So
the risk was too high.
The risk was too high for the surgery. Mm-hmm. So he says, well, can I do this? He says, well, why don't you do lose some weight first before we operate on you? So he goes, well, how do I lose weight? I'm this big fat guy. How do I lose weight?
Poor Jim.
You're right. So he said, well, maybe you should start walking. So he started walking and it started to help him and he started feeling better mentally and physically and he started losing a little bit of weight, but it was kind of slow. So he decided, how about if I run? But he wasn't, able to sprint or run fast or anything. Mm-hmm. So he'd break into a bit of a trot. He would just he'd run, but at a slow speed. And it was called jogging. And he started the craze of jogging and he wrote 2 or 3 books. And one of the books was Complete Book of Running. And he was on Good Morning America and he was all over the place, just
famous.
Yeah, just really famous. He was the man of the hour because his chest pain went away. Mm-hmm. He talked about how his mood improved, his mind improved. This running just, took away his stress and anxiety. And he just felt fabulous. And he would go on these regular runs all the time. Mm-hmm. One morning he went for a run and he fell flat on his face, dead. 52 years of age. It made headline news because it made world headline news because this was the guy who had given us the answer on how to live longer and be fit and healthy and, the Complete Book of Running. He was he was a hero. And here he was 52 years old and dead. And it came to, there were two things came out of this. Mm-hmm. One was, so the comedians decided, well, see, all exercise is bad for you. That's why I don't exercise. Right? All the little chubby comedians were happy to say that one. But when the scientists actually analyzed this, that, why did this guy who was so absolutely fit, right? Just like our Dr. H, who was absolutely fit, have a massive heart attack and just die. And the reason was that somehow his heart disease must have started because of a lack of micronutrients on a long period of time, right? So the lack of micronutrients somehow contributed to his heart disease. Mm-hmm. And
did he have anything else? Was he a smoker? Did he have diabetes or
no? He was.
No other risk factors? Or?
Whatever he had went away when he lost the weight,
Mm-hmm.
right? So his numbers were all perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole big deal. He's being paraded around as like an example of fabulous health. But, but then, so the only thing that we can think of is that he must have had some kind of vitamin and mineral and micronutrient deficiency because, see, with the running and in sports, you consume more, right? So, in fact, Dr. Sam and I are working on specialized lines of nutrients for sports people, right? For athletes and for different sports, because this is such an important area because, people are starting to exercise more. They feel, I want to be healthy. I want to be fit. So I'm going to exercise. So, and they consume their supplements. So
there's the issue of, is our food real food? Is the food we're eating, is it real? Or is it all sort of chemicals, and what's going on with our food?
Well,
because people they're not when you look at them, they look pretty healthy. They seem, in fact, chubby, and in some cultures, chubbiness or being overweight is seen as a sign of health.
And you're seeing it around the world now. Even in countries where you didn't expect to see obesity, you're seeing it, like India and China. You're seeing, large numbers of people becoming obese, and the incidence of diabetes, hypertension, heart disease is just skyrocketed in these countries. Not to mention in our countries, in the U.S. and in Canada. But yes, the food, and if you actually see, this isn't a plug for Netflix, but if you watch on Netflix, there's a bunch of food documentaries that will scare the pants off of you on like how they create food, how meat and vegetables and all these kinds of things are produced. And it's just scary because all the little tricks that are used that introduce into our diets excessive amounts of sodium, sugar, chemicals.
So we don't have all the answers as to what is that process, but we do know that if you eat well, if you eat nutritious food and real food, which has not been chemicalized, and you're not eating empty calories, because you could sit all day and just eat donuts, and you could feel full and feel fine, but eventually something's going to happen to you, right? So we don't have all the answers, but we know that if you try to eat nutritious food, the chances are that you will stay healthy longer. And so there must be some connection there in terms of, things causing illness and disease.
Right.
So the content of sodium, of sugar in our food.
And this is starting in the youngest ages, right? It's happening with children. Children's foods containing a lot of salt and sugar. And so you've got childhood obesity and leading into adult obesity. You've got little children, 10, 12 years old, on blood pressure medicines, on diabetes medicines that are just, because they're overweight, they're malnourished. And see, this is that concept of cellular starvation where you are getting plenty of macronutrients, fats, carbohydrates, protein, because there's plenty of food, thank God, in most parts of the world nowadays. But the food, the quality, meaning the micronutrients, the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals and stuff are lacking. And so at the cellular level, it's not functioning well, and the body is having diseases and not just heart disease, but a number of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, there are foods that are called inflammatory foods that are probably cause inflammation because they are not real. So chemicals and things have been added to them. And so we, make also the assumption that causes some degree of inflammation in your body. And that inflammation can trigger your immune system to turn on and attack your own body. So those are autoimmune conditions. And so there's a number of foods and things that, might be triggering your immune system to malfunction, to cause a dysfunction. I guess. And a general rule of thumb that we often talk about for food, for kind of when you go shopping for buying your food, is to try to stick to the perimeter of the grocery store, the outside circumference of the grocery store. That's where you'll get most of your
fresh, real food, which they have to refrigerate.
Try to
as
avoid
opposed to the aisles, which are the boxed stuff.
The aisles, the packaged stuff.
The packaged stuff with the chemicals and things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we don't know the long-term effects. See, just as we don't know all the long-term effects of not having all the vitamins and minerals, we also don't know the long-term effects of introducing all these chemicals into our body, right? In the short term, all the studies that are done, whether they're either for things like vitamins and minerals and stuff, the short-term studies, they show that they're not particularly useful, but also that the chemicals that are introduced are also safe. But in long term, neither one of those points may be true. So vitamins and minerals shortage deficiencies in the long term may be extremely detrimental, which we suspect in cases like Fixx, where the extreme exercise accelerated all this, or in Dr. H's case, where over a long period of time, his micronutrient malnourishment must have led to his issue. And so those are, so we brought up those two cases as evidence that, or not as evidence, but as examples that perhaps, we recommend that you take good nutritional supplements.
Yeah, and even when you are shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, and hopefully you're looking more for things like organic foods and healthy food, real food, versus non-organic, chemicalized food, you still have to be careful of what you're choosing, right? Not everything that is on the shelves means that it's safe and okay for you, right? Which is the common misconception that things that are on the shelf have been tried and tested.
But I feel very strongly that supplementation is very important, because everything that we need, we just cannot consume enough food, enough quality food to get all the micronutrients that we need on a regular daily basis at an optimal level, right? You may be able to get your RDA, but that's just getting by.
Yeah.
But to really prevent scurvy. But if you really want to be optimized and blossom and be healthy and strong, then you really need to supplement.
And also the issue of how those certain chemicals and certain things in our food are turning our genes on and off. Something called
Nutrigenomics. So this is a very interesting area. You tell them about it.
Well, nutrigenomics is the study of how nutrition, or the lack thereof, certain chemicals in our environment, food, etc., can turn our genes on and off. So if we have a certain gene for cancer and we look after ourselves really well, it doesn't mean that that gene will necessarily be expressed, or a gene for heart disease or diabetes or something. It's not necessarily that it will be expressed. If we do things right, it may never show up. But the interaction of certain things that don't agree with us, chemicals, for example, sugar, or other things that our body does not need, can trigger certain reactions in our body to cause certain illnesses. Right.
So the genes can be turned on by these substances that we put into our mouths, like foods that contain chemicals. And these substances can go in and turn on bad genes that can cause disease in us. The reverse is also true, where you can have modification of these genes where it's anti-cancer, it's preventive. And there are substances like curcumin that are being studied for this, that they will work at the genetic level to turn off the genes that would cause cancer.
Curcumin is the
extract of turmeric, the spice.
Turmeric, that yellow spice that is used. So anything else you want to add to our stories about Dr. H and Jim, or?
Well, just keep in mind that, whatever you're eating, try to analyze what you eat before you eat it. Don't just go blindly by taste. right?
Our food should basically, food can taste good and also be nutritious for you. It doesn't have to taste bad to be good for you. And you have to make sure that it's providing you the nutrition that you need. And often, by the time the food gets to your fridge or to your table, it has been sitting around for a long time. So you probably need that extra supplementation with vitamins and minerals.
Absolutely.
So basically, just to recap, a lack of vitamins and minerals in the proper amounts and quantities can lead to health problems in the long term. And the studies that have been done, unfortunately, on studying certain vitamins, most of them are short-term studies, and they study one vitamin in isolation, which is usually not the way it is
in the body.
In real life. When we eat food, it's a combination of many nutrients together. So make sure you eat real food and get enough nutrition. So thank you for listening to the Age Management Show. Stay tuned for our next show, which will feature Vinny. Vinny is an obese chef with multiple health problems, but he has one solution to all of his problems, and that is weight management. So stay tuned to hear our story about Vinny. And we are your hosts.
I'm Dr. Ali.
And I'm Dr. Sam. Please follow us on social media and have a very nice day. Eat well, keep healthy, and we'll see you next time.
Bye now.